We've seen some unusual weather in the United States over the past few weeks. Here in New York, we saw temperatures that were well above normal for weeks. So WeatherBill is a company that sells weather insurance and weather derivatives to small and medium-sized businesses that depend on the weather to survive. Think, of course, of your local golf course, or think of the ski resorts around Davos. David Friedberg is the CEO of the company, and he's with us from San Francisco. David, first off, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me ask, first of all, for you to try and explain what your company does in a simple language. You predict the weather, and then you allow customers to insure against the ill effects in weather. What is that you do?
Sure. So what customers see is contracts, weather contracts, that they can purchase from us. A weather contract can be as simple as pay me $2,000 every day that it rains. So as you mentioned, if a golf course shuts down every day that it rains and loses $2,000 in revenue, he can now protect himself from that foregone revenue.
And how does the pricing work? I mean, I know this is a question you're asked often, but if I'm a golf course operator and I want $2,000 worth of insurance for every day that it rains, how much do you charge me for that contract?
So it obviously depends on where you live. When you ask for a contract quote from us, we instantly return the price to you. And what we're doing in the background is all our computer servers are trying to figure out what the historical weather patterns would dictate for your particular area, what the forecasts are saying, and typically within a fraction of a second we will tell you how much that particular quote will cost.
You use a system, you use an algorithm, although I know it's a word you don't use on your website from speaking to you during the break, but you use an algorithm to predict the weather. Is this a better way of predicting the weather than other meteorologists have used in the past? I mean, the weatherman tends to not be right all the time.
Sure. So the goal of the company and the goal of these pricing systems really isn't to do a better job of predicting the weather. It's to potentially open up a new market opportunity for these customers that don't have access to weather protection today. And as more and more customers buy one type of risk from us, so obviously as people buy more and more rainy day contracts, we as a company are exposed to paying out for a rainy day. We start to drive up the price of those rainy day contracts and drive down the price of dry day contracts. So we are effectively a market maker in this new market. So the forecasting really isn't key. What's key is the fact that we can adjust pricing in real time based on what customers want.
You do need, though, to forecast relatively close to the real situation, I assume. And it looks like weather's been changing a lot. Do you take into account the so-called global warming that's been happening here?
Sure. So all of the models, as we look at historical weather trends, and you can ask any meteorologist this that is familiar with kind of weather data patterns in the U.S., show a reasonable warming trend at pretty much every city in the United States. And so those trends are incorporated in our pricing systems in real time.
And do you see that trend continuing? I mean, to ask a quick global warming question to someone who's forecasting the weather?
Sure. So I would say that it depends on the area. You know, each city has a unique warming trend. New York, for example, has seen a lot of build-out in the city, a lot greater increase in population over the last 30 years or so. So the warming trend is more accelerated in New York, whereas in a rural area, say, for example, Iowa, there is a warming trend, but because they haven't had such an urban build-out, the warming hasn't accelerated as much in that particular area. Again, the weather data that we're looking at is particularly specific to a city.
Let me ask about your customers. I know you've just started out, but have you got any customers, and can you name them for us?
Sure. So we obviously can't release customer names when accounts are created. They're confidential. But our customers are fantastically diverse, which is really what we set out to do. We set out to provide a solution, a platform that will allow any kind of business to protect themselves from the weather. And so we saw great results. We've seen companies in Chicago, in New York, in Texas, in San Francisco, companies as diverse as ski equipment manufacturing companies, car washes, even high net worth individuals that are protecting against vacation travel.
I wonder, we only have 10 seconds left, but can you tell us about any plans to IPO or to sell the company?
I can only hope. We are some time away.
All right. Our thanks to David Friedberg, CEO of WeatherBill. Maybe we'll talk to you when you come back for that IPO. Now, we'll have more on those